Hello everyone. Welcome back, I'm so glad you're here. The lights inside the stadium felt unreal that night, almost like the entire city of Las Vegas had stopped breathing just to witness those final moments. Hours of music, screams, tears, laughter, and memories had already filled the air, but something changed near the end. The atmosphere softened in a way nobody expected. The explosive energy that had shaken the arena slowly turned emotional, almost fragile, as the members of BTS stood together under the glowing lights, looking out at thousands of fans who refused to let the night end. Even through shaky fancam footage, even through distant screens and blurred camera movements, there was something painfully real about what happened during Namjoon and Taehyung's ending Ment. It didn't feel like idols speaking on stage anymore. It felt like two human beings opening pieces of their hearts after carrying a weight for far too long. The crowd was already emotional before a single word was spoken. People could sense it. There are nights during concerts when artists simply perform, smile, wave goodbye, and leave. But then there are nights where emotions hang in the air before anyone even says anything. This was one of those nights. The members looked exhausted, but not in a negative way. It was the exhaustion that comes after surviving something difficult together. Their faces carried relief, disbelief, gratitude, and something deeper that many fans immediately noticed. It was the look of people realizing a chapter of their lives had finally ended. When Namjoon stepped forward to speak, the noise inside the stadium exploded instantly. Yet even through the cheers, there was a strange trembling in his expression. Namjoon has always been someone who speaks carefully, someone who thinks deeply before every sentence leaves his mouth. But that night, his emotions felt less controlled than usual. His voice carried that familiar softness, but there was also a crack hidden underneath it, like he was trying to hold together feelings that had been building quietly for months. Fans watching the fancam later noticed the way he paused before speaking, the way he looked around the stadium almost as if he wanted to memorize every face in front of him. And then came the words that hit everyone straight in the chest. No more military service. It sounded simple. Almost casual. But the second he said it, the entire arena erupted in a wave of emotion so loud it nearly drowned out everything else. Some fans screamed. Some cried instantly. Others just stood frozen because those four words carried years of waiting, uncertainty, fear, separation, and hope. Military service had become a shadow hanging over BTS for so long that hearing those words out loud almost didn't feel real. Fans had spent years counting enlistment dates, discharge schedules, missed birthdays, absent performances, quiet social media updates, and lonely moments wondering when the group would truly stand together again. And suddenly, there it was. Finished. Over. Namjoon smiled after saying it, but it wasn't the confident smile people usually associate with him. It looked emotional. Almost overwhelmed. As if even he couldn't fully process that they had finally crossed the finish line together. The members behind him reacted immediately. Some laughed. Some clapped. Some lowered their heads while smiling in disbelief. The energy on stage transformed into something deeply personal, almost like seven friends quietly celebrating survival after a long storm. The fancam caught Taehyung standing nearby, and fans immediately noticed the expression on his face. Taehyung looked emotional in a quieter way. Unlike Namjoon's thoughtful intensity, Taehyung carried an almost vulnerable softness that night. There was a certain gentleness in his eyes that made the moment even more heartbreaking. Throughout the years, Taehyung has often hidden his emotions behind smiles, jokes, or playful behavior, but during this ending Ment, it felt impossible for him to fully hide what he was feeling. When he eventually spoke, the atmosphere shifted again. His voice sounded calm at first, but fans could hear the emotion underneath every sentence. There was gratitude there, but also exhaustion, relief, and sincerity that felt almost too raw for such a massive stadium. He spoke like someone who had been carrying emotions quietly during the military years and was finally allowing himself to breathe again. The crowd listened carefully, hanging onto every word because there was something unusually honest about the way he spoke that night. Taehyung mentioned how much he missed moments like this. Standing together. Seeing the fans. Hearing the screams. Feeling alive on stage again. Those words might sound simple on paper, but inside that stadium, they carried enormous emotional weight. During military service, life becomes separated from the world idols once knew. The schedules disappear. The stage lights vanish. The routines completely change. For global superstars like BTS, the silence must have felt even more dramatic. Going from sold-out stadiums to military routines is not just a career pause. It is an emotional and psychological transformation. And hearing Taehyung speak openly about returning to this life made the entire moment feel painfully human. What made the fancam so powerful was not just the words themselves. It was everything happening between the words. The pauses. The smiles that suddenly turned emotional. The moments where the members looked at each other without speaking. Fans noticed Namjoon glancing toward the others repeatedly, almost as if silently confirming they had truly made it through together. Those small interactions became unforgettable because they revealed a bond that goes far beyond music or fame. The stadium lights reflected across thousands of army bombs waving in the darkness, creating an ocean of purple that looked almost endless. In those moments, the connection between BTS and ARMY felt larger than a normal artist and fan relationship. It felt like two sides of the same story finally reuniting after a painful separation. Fans were not emotional simply because military service had ended. They were emotional because they had waited together. They endured together. Every comeback delay, every uncertain announcement, every missing member on stage had become part of a collective experience shared between BTS and millions of fans around the world. Namjoon continued speaking with the kind of honesty that has always made him special. He admitted that there were difficult moments during military service. Even without going into full detail, fans could hear the truth in his tone. There are pressures that come with being BTS that most people could never fully understand. The world watches every move they make. Expectations never disappear. Even during enlistment, their names continued to dominate headlines globally. Yet despite everything, they returned together. And that word mattered most. Together. Not separated. Not fractured. Not distant. Together. The crowd reacted every time the members stood close to each other because fans understood how meaningful those images had become. Seeing all seven together on stage again after military service carried emotional power that almost felt historic. Some fans in the audience were openly crying during the ending Ment, and the fancam audio captured those emotional reactions clearly. There were shaky breaths, trembling screams, voices yelling how much they missed them. It felt less like a concert ending and more like a family reunion happening in real time. Taehyung's emotions became even more noticeable as the moment continued. At times he smiled brightly, but seconds later his face would soften into something reflective, almost overwhelmed by the reality of the moment. Fans online later discussed how his eyes looked emotional throughout the Ment, especially whenever the crowd screamed loudly for them. There is something uniquely heartbreaking about seeing someone realize how deeply they were missed. For years, BTS built their career on emotional honesty. They never survived purely because of visuals, choreography, or popularity. People connected to them because they made loneliness, fear, pressure, dreams, and pain feel understood. That emotional honesty became even more visible during this Las Vegas concert because military service changed the emotional context of everything. Every smile meant more. Every laugh carried relief. Every interaction between the members felt precious. At one point, Namjoon looked out into the massive crowd with an expression that almost seemed stunned. Even after all these years, even after global fame beyond imagination, there are still moments where BTS look genuinely surprised by the love surrounding them. Perhaps because military service temporarily removed them from that world, returning to such overwhelming support probably felt surreal. Fans did not disappear during the hiatus years. If anything, their emotional attachment grew stronger. The fancam also captured beautiful moments between the members themselves. Small shoulder touches. Shared laughter. Quiet reactions while one member spoke. Those details mattered because BTS have always communicated love more through actions than dramatic speeches. You could see the comfort they gave each other naturally, almost instinctively. Years of friendship, struggle, pressure, and shared dreams have created a connection that cannot easily be explained. As Taehyung listened to Namjoon speak, there were moments where he smiled softly while staring at him, almost like he understood exactly what Namjoon was feeling without needing further explanation. Fans who have followed BTS for years immediately felt emotional watching those interactions because they remembered everything the group had endured together. Endless schedules. Public pressure. Burnout. Injuries. Global fame arriving faster than anyone expected. Then suddenly military service forcing them apart during one of the biggest peaks of their career. Yet somehow they returned with their bond still intact. That reality alone felt emotional enough to break fans apart. The Las Vegas concert became more than a performance. It became proof. Proof that BTS survived time. Proof that their connection with ARMY remained unbroken. Proof that military service did not erase the chemistry, love, or emotional power they carried together. Near the end of the Ment, the emotions inside the stadium became almost impossible to contain. Fans kept screaming messages of love while the members stood there trying to absorb the moment. Namjoon's expression looked softer than usual, almost peaceful in a way fans had not seen for a long time. Taehyung looked emotional but comforted, like someone finally returning home after a long journey. The beauty of the Fancam is that it captured imperfections too. The shaky camera movements. The loud emotional screams. The unstable zooming. Those imperfections somehow made the moment feel even more authentic because it reminded everyone this was not a polished documentary scene created for dramatic effect. It was real people experiencing overwhelming emotions together in real time. And maybe that is why the clip spread so quickly. Among fans online, people were not simply watching idols speak during a concert. They were witnessing the emotional closing of a painful chapter that had followed BTS for years. The words, "no more military service," became symbolic instantly because they represented freedom, reunion, and a new beginning. Fans who had waited patiently through every enlistment suddenly realized the future they hoped for was finally here again. As the members stood together one last time under the lights, the atmosphere inside the stadium felt almost cinematic. Confetti floated through the air. Purple lights shimmered across the crowd. The cheers sounded endless. Yet beneath all the celebration was something quieter and deeper, relief. Collective relief shared between artists and fans who had endured separation together. Taehyung smiled again toward the crowd before looking back at the members, and for a brief second his expression carried a mixture of happiness and disbelief that perfectly captured the entire night. It was the face of someone realizing the waiting was over. And somewhere inside that roaring stadium filled with tears, laughter, memories, and purple lights, millions of emotions collided into one unforgettable feeling. BTS had finally come back together completely.